All right, man.
Awesome. Well,
So
Mr.
it is.
Harris, thank you for joining me here on the Empty Crypt. It's amazing to have you aboard. Sorry for all the confusion and all that other stuff recently. So,
You know what? Not at all. It worked out. I was away 2 weeks ago in Disney World, and
oh,
I
nice.
it was pretty great. I brought back, instead of a souvenir, I brought back COVID, and so I was pretty much out of commission for the week. So each day we put it up, I'm feeling a little better. So
Okay, for sure.
yeah,
No, I'm glad you're feeling a little bit better.
yeah.
But for because like I said, I am recording live. So for all the people who don't know exactly who you are and what you do you mind just giving us just a summary of what you do for a living and who you are?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, my name's Jeff Harris. I'm a commercial photographer. I specialize of late in shooting key art on films and in the entertainment world. And I've kind of created a niche in the horror world, kind of thanks to my initial work on Terrifier 2. So yeah, I've been a photographer for a very long time, 30 odd years, and started out in still life and product photography when I got out of school here in New York. And but always, I always had a love for not necessarily horror films, but always a love for Halloween and costume and history. And so a lot of my personal work, a lot of my fashion work, a lot of my free time is kind of focused along those lines.
For sure. Yeah, no, I know I was reading a little bit about you, and I know like you attended I can't remember the university, but you attended or you started photography in 1985, I want to say.
Well, yeah,
No.
yeah,
So
graduated from NYU Film School in '85.
nice. Okay.
But
Nice.
yeah. Well, I
I'm
got my
sorry. So
start.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was gonna say I got my start because my parents both have an art background. They're both New Yorkers, went to high school of music and art. My dad was in advertising for 40 years, and I kind of came into it that way.
Nice. Okay. So is this something that you grew up like since your parents are involved in art? Is this something that like, you know what, that's what I want to do?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I don't know if it was that's what I want to do, but I think it was just always there. The house was like a gallery growing up. They had artwork from friends and they collected, and they were both extremely talented and artistic. So and I spent my summers, working at my dad's place and being introduced to photographers, illustrators, filmmakers, and I think that just whetted my appetite from an early age, and I kind of knew that was my
Your
path.
For
Yeah.
sure. So if it wasn't for photography, like what else do you think you would be doing? So if you could do any job in the world, what would it have been?
Gosh, I kind of toyed with the idea of something in the sciences,
Okay.
science and history. I mean, I have a 15-year-old now, and I'm obsessed with his history teachers and his history class. So I would get a big kick out of that. And when I was young, I kind of wanted to be a scuba diver and oceanographer. So
For sure. I mean, technically, with your filming background, I mean, you can still do
mhm,
ocean photography. You just, I mean, I don't know if you're scuba certified or, I
mhm.
mean, that's a little scary. I mean, I do like the ocean, but I mean, for sure. But so how did you get hooked up with Damian and all that good stuff with shooting some of these guys for Terrifier?
So I joke with my wife. I tell her that if there's ever a big award ceremony and I'm winning something, I said I'm gonna thank Olga before I thank you. So it's all things through Olga. Olga and I've Olga, whom you interviewed, right?
Mhm.
Olga, the production designer, wardrobe person for Terrifier 2. She and I had worked together with some musicians and some commercial projects, but we're sort of partners in creativity. When we've had just too much commercial work, we just need to get in the studio, pull in some models or people, some crazy costumes, build some sets, and just play. And so we do a lot of that together. And Olga was on this shoot, and she knows how much I love Halloween, and she knows that my work tends to go to that kind of dark place. And she invited me down to the shoot in February 2020 when the guys were shooting the Fright Factory in Philly. So, and I think at that time, Olga said to Damian, "Hey, my friend Jeff would love to come down and shoot some photos." And there were a lot of people who just like wanted to come down and hang out and help out on the set then. So, he didn't really give it much of a thought, and it came down. And so I got down there. It was late at night. A funny story, I was on my way down. I bit into a cookie. I broke a tooth on my driving down there. I swear to you, some months later, I was driving upstate to Canajoharie to shoot. I broke a tooth. I got it.
Wow.
So it's a little haunted, the set. So yeah, I showed up down there, got myself a Airbnb, and pulled some of the principals, Lauren, David, Elliot, Kaylee, into a little set that I built in some old grungy hallways, and just started shooting that right there.
I mean, I gotta say, man, I think there's tons of people, especially with the popularity, right, of Terrifier 2, like seeing your just masterpiece of like your photography skills have really taken off. Like, not saying that it wasn't before. I'm saying like there's a lot of people sharing your work.
Yes.
Across all the platforms because of something you did. So, I mean, how does that feel to have, all these people engaged in something that you took the time to create?
The thing that I really get a kick about are the tattoos, and I'm sure it thrills Damian as well. I mean, it's Damian's character. Damian created it, but to see my specific photos on some guy's thigh or somebody's shoulder or on some woman's back, and there's been I've seen 6 or 8 of them at least. That's exciting and thrilling. I mean, I really appreciate the level to which people have embraced the work. Yeah. And just to see it everywhere. It's funny. I took my son to the premiere. He's 15. He's going to film school now. And in the infamous the yellow room kill scene, when there's a little pan across the room, and
wow,
that's the hat that she's supposed to wear. It's in the chair there, and that was just my Halloween costume from the year before. And Olga had mentioned, in all of it, she said, "Oh my God, and I have to make a witch's hat." And I said, "Oh, I got you covered. I'll bring a hat."
For sure. So like now, not only with Terrifier, but what can you tell like the fans out there? What else have you worked on within, just your career?
Oh, well, just my career? Gosh. It's I mean, I do have kind of like a little visual deck. Do we have any ability to share it, or?
Let me see. So I couldn't do it because I'm actually on my cell phone right now. So I would have to do it from the top, but we can definitely plug that in.
Okay, that's okay. So as I say, I got into the industry on the commercial side of it, and then I went to film school, NYU. I've worked for when there were, when magazines were a big thing. I've worked for every magazine that there was, shooting editorial, from Vogue and Glamour, Marie Claire, Elle, 17, Oprah, House and Garden, House Beautiful. If you can name a publication, I've probably shot for it. In fact, I'm pretty convinced I hold the record for the most photographs taken for Vogue magazine. Not necessarily the best, but the most. We used to shoot literally maybe 3,000 a year just for Vogue. Back 15 years ago, when magazines were in their heyday. So that was that was kind of a heady, fun, wonderful time back then. But that was sort of more of a commodity of work, but it was something that was very sustaining for a while. While I still do work for a lot of those magazines, and for people whom I met with and formed relationships then, now that I'm older, more mature. My work is evolved. It's better. It's, more creative. I, take more care and time with it, and do a lot less. So, but the thing that, because of Terrifier and because Olga brought me on to another horror film, the Tannery, that she was the production designer for. I've shot some, a week or so on that set, shot some wonderful, really great photos in that production too. So, and that's thrilling too. It ticks all my boxes. It's a period piece about a period that 1920, post World War I, takes place in a grungy old leather factory that Olga and her team were able to make look. It's mind-blowingly realistic. A piece of leather this big might cost you $20. She had to fill an entire factory with what looks like real leather, and it was genius how they did it. So to walk into into that set, to have a little freedom, be able to set up some lights, pull in some principal characters, and kind of create things with my own personal spin on it, was a real joy. Another film that's in production I shot for, I think the working title is Night of Violence, which could be the working title for just about any horror film. But I was at a karaoke birthday party maybe a year ago, and I'm yelling, "What do you do? What?" And a guy who's in real estate, he goes, "But I'm producing my first film." I said, "What is it?" "It's a horror film." I said, "Come outside. I'm your guy." I was like, "Look, here, we're gonna."
Right.
He goes, "Oh, we only have like 2 more days of shooting." I said, "All right, I'm there tomorrow night." He goes, "Well, we're shooting from like 8 p.m. to like 8 a.m. I was like, "I'm there. We're there." So that was another, like just a fun, wonderful kind of independent shoot, but with costumes and excess of blood and sharp objects,
Sure.
smoke machines and gels. Yeah.
So with your photography, I mean, it's so much that can be interpreted, by, the things that you produce. So like, what goes into the creative mind, or what kind of creative mind do you get into when you're creating some of these pieces?
I think it's always the story first. Everything starts with a story. Everything starts with, an idea. I mean, in the, my professional commercial work, and I used to teach, so I always tell my students or my interns that it's always a good job when the client says to you, "What do you think?" And that's an indication that it's going to be sort of an open, collaborative, thoughtful process. With a film, I mean, there's a story there already. There are generally characters and defined characters, maybe environments, but suggested environments, relationships. So it's sort of about bringing out the story in a still image. So it's funny with Terrifier, I had read a bit of the script, but that was a script that was evolving.
Yes.
As it went, and and it, just an aside, because we get cut off. I just can't say enough about Damian, for instance, and what just like a wonderful, sort of soulful, lovely, hardworking, creative guy he is, and it was just a joy to be brought into that and have a lovely Damian story as well. But so I knew and I watched the first film. I wasn't familiar with it until Olga told me about it, but I watched the first film, like kind of like with one eye. and so I had an essence of the characters a little bit. Olga had told me a bit about it. I'd seen a couple snapshots. So when I first arrived, I set up in this hallway. It's kind of iconic now, this green glow. It's just like some back hallways at Fright Factory. And I pulled Lauren in first. And now at this point, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and she's just been waiting around. She's covered in blood, dried blood. It was cold as you can imagine. It was February. It was colder inside than outside. And when you see the behind the scenes photos, the crew is walking around in like parkas indoors. And there's Lauren in Sienna's in costume, and they were filming the climax, those 2 nights. And I pulled her over, and she was like intense and focused, and I just got, and then they called her back, and that was it. So I really only had about 10 minutes or something with Lauren, and it was kind of the same with David. I had, and David was funny. He was like, the hat's not quite right. He'd make sure the makeup, make sure I was like, I'll retouch it. It's okay. It's okay. It's stills. It's fine. But he was just like on focus, did his thing and left. And then, but they're so focused, the 2 of them, and they were so in character, and they'd been working their asses off for long, long days and hours on end. It wasn't much of a stretch to evoke in them that kind of, that energy that was going to occur at the climax in the at Pride Factory there. And then I had more time with Elliot and Kaylee to be more playful. But it was great. With Kaylee, it was having her act out a bit of that scene. I had walked in while she's being chased right before Art corners her in the bathroom, and so she was really in character too. So that it was helpful that it happened there and not in the studio, because
So like, I didn't know that you had to like take on some of these elements as well. I knew like the cast and crew had to go through like some of the coldness, how you were describing, but I didn't know like you had to. I'm thinking you took these photos, inside of a nice warm, environment. I had no idea like you had to go through.
I don't think I'm taking a guess. I don't think there was a nice warm environment anytime in Terrifier 2, from what I understand. Those guys ran on adrenaline and love. They just and a shared focus, to get it done. It's filmmaking is hard, and yet but it does, you get a huge group of people and a disparate group with different personalities, different, maybe some different working manners, different politics, and yet everybody just shuts up and gets it done in the service of getting this film done. And it's always impressive to me. It really is. So yeah, it was cold. I mean, I'm not complaining. I had clothes on. Lauren didn't.
You didn't have to get into the costumes and all that stuff. No, but I mean, it's just crazy because like when I sit back and I think about Terrifier and all that good stuff, it's like your work is being seen by millions of people. I mean, it already has, but within the horror realm, people are just finding out about Terrifier, and it's your images that are really painting this picture for millions of people. So I mean, I'm pretty sure your family's very excited for you. So how did the family take on, you picking up a project like Terrifier?
My wife is wholly supportive. And as I say, my son is 15. He's in High School of Art and Design in Manhattan studying filmmaking. And I went to film school. So they know that it's a love of mine. I'm like the guy on my block in Brooklyn who does Halloween. And I started it 20 years ago when no one else was doing it. Started slowly, and now my block, it gets the street that gets closed off. Everybody's into it, and we got over 1,000 trick-or-treaters on my Brooklyn street, just my house. We counted this year we counted over 100 in a minute this year. We were just like throwing candy. So my son he's really into it as well. We get pretty elaborate. That's where the hat came from. I was rich that year, and my wife tolerates it because she knows about that I love it. So it was in March that they were shooting the Clown Cafe scene and some other scenes up in upstate New York, in Canajoharie, New York. And so I traveled up there for a few days, and that was really impressive. I'm actually in the background with Phil. If you blink, you miss me, but I'm in the Clown Cafe in the TV studio, which was fun. And there was a lot of downtime, and that's when a lot of the Indiegogo people get to be murdered at the Clown Cafe there. So a lot of those people, they were kind of amazing. They had driven from, some drove down from Canada, somebody drove from Ohio, people drove up from the city. The pilot flew in, he's a Southwest pilot. He flew in from Phoenix or something like that, I think. I don't want to get that wrong. His parents had like a haunted house facility, outdoor thing down south, I think. So that, I mean, these people, they came. And so, you know, I wanted part of my contribution to be to help make them feel special as well. So I took a lot of time with them and came up with some of my favorite photos of some of them. There are some on Instagram, some on my website. You know, just there's the young girl who gets shot, and I have this beautiful, beautiful photo of her. And she looks like it's almost like a Madonna type photo. It's real. And they're all covered in blood, but you know, the way I approached it, I did it kind of reverently, because I knew that this meant so much to them, that they had gone out of their way to make this special kind of pilgrimage and had paid to do it too. So I spent a lot of time with them there doing that, and some of the you know, crew as well. I have a lot of great crew photos as well. And it was I think it was like a Thursday or something. I was planning on staying another day, and my wife calls and says, listen, can you come home? I said, well, it's just one more day. She goes, no, you understand the COVID thing. I don't know what's going on. They're shutting down the city. Everything's shut down. I'm kind of freaking out. Will you come home? This was, I think, March 13th, 2020. And I said, but tomorrow, the clown and the flamethrower, she's like, just come home. So I missed David with the flamethrower, but I did get a lot of great shots anyway.
I mean, for sure. And so you had to, I know this happened, you know, during or right before COVID. So a lot of the photos you couldn't release yet. So how was that trying to maintain?
That was hard. It was really hard to keep the secrets, and especially Little Pale Girl, because that was a real, they really kept that one secret for a long time. You know, I was I'm thrilled about the work and the photos. And so I was eager to share them, really eager to share them. In fact, I had planned a whole sort of printed promotional piece around it. Now that nobody goes to the office anymore, nobody's sending out printed promotional pieces, because it's kind of weird when you find out the art director's home address. But so it was, it was tough, but I respect their process. And so, I always checked with Damian and Phil.
Sure. So, I mean, so hopefully, we do get a Terrifier 3. Are you going to be working on the photography for that as well, hopefully?
Oh, I would be thrilled. I'd be thrilled to be involved with it, but I got to say, it will remain to be seen how much of all those decisions remain with Damian and Phil. I mean, I'm going to assume that there's going to be people with a lot of money involved. So, but sure, but it's, I mean, look, it's such an iconic character, and I do, I appreciate the way you described it. I do feel I contributed to the, to the look of it out in the world, and the marketing material and everything.
Definitely. I remember some of the first photos I've actually seen of Terrifier 2. I didn't know at the time they were, yours. But like just coming across, I'm like, wow, these are really good. Didn't know who did it or whatever, but it was your work. So I'm like, if I'm one person, there's millions of people out there that, really seen your work. A lot of people fell in love with it a little bit more just because of the things that, you brought. Oh, so I mean, definitely congratulations to you.
Oh, thanks.
For sure.
I just give you a little anecdote. I went to film school, and a dear friend of mine teaches film studies at City University of New York on Staten Island. He called me, it was the beginning of the pandemic, and he said, listen, I know we're always talking about doing something together, but I wrote a script and I got a grant and you're going to shoot it. And I said, okay. Now I've shot some video before, but never a narrative film. So he's out on Staten Island, the school's on Staten Island, and it was COVID and it was the summer. So we kind of had this whole CUNY TV studio to ourselves. So we built a set, and of course, Olga was the set designer and wardrobe person. She was working on another film, so she couldn't actually be there during the filming, but and she had told Damian about it. And Damian said, "Oh my God, Jeff's shooting a film. And you did, I want to come and see it." He goes, "All right." So Damian comes out, and before you know it, he just wants to see the set, what the plan is, wants to be supportive. Before you know it, I got Damian painting the walls until like 11 o'clock at night. He's just like, he goes, I can do some trompe l'oeil stuff. I was like, you go. It was an old 1950s rundown hotel in Paris. Yeah.
He definitely sounds like a team player there. I mean, he's helping out wherever he can, for sure.
Yeah.
That's a great guy.
Absolutely.
But like, what's next for yourself? Like, so where do you see your career going within the next 5 to 10 years? Like, what's the plan?
That's a great question. I come from a long career shooting still life, in fact, and that was kind of where I honed all of my lighting skills. In the service of making things look beautiful and perfect. And so now for me to work with performers, musicians, actors it's a joy. I liken it to when I did learn scuba diving. I learned in New York in the fall. It's cold as shit, dark, rough waters. You're putting up with firefighters and cops who just like want to see you fail on the boat. And but once you can do it here, going to the Caribbean is a walk in the park, diving. And so it's working on shooting still life and things that were kind of technical, and then taking those skills and moving it to things that I love, where there are people who are actual performers. It's kind of like magically, wonderfully smooth and engaging and collaborative. I mean, people who are, it's the hardest people to photograph would be someone like me, who's not, although I have a little performer in me, but when you get somebody who is, a trained and dedicated performer, actor, it's a joy. And so I've been doing more of that, whether it's opera, Olga. Let's see. I'd like to thank Olga. I can't do it without her. Who brought me on opera recently, which is wonderfully, dramatic and with great costumes. So it's more of this. I really am making a push to find more work in this world of horror films and anything kind of costume oriented drama, period pieces. That's where I feel the most excited and the most comfortable. I mean, I'm not a big horror movie fan, but I love the grit of it, and I love the darkness, and I love the mystery and the textures and the costumes and the people involved.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I was just going to ask you, so what would be your favorite? I know you're not a big horror movie fan, but like, what would be your favorite horror movie?
Oh gosh, it's the psychological ones are there for me. The Shining, is really there and really wonderful. Anything that's kind of creepy like that. I'd have to say that working on something like that, the challenge of creating something so suspenseful and terrifying in a vast empty space, I think is really just, it's just a wonderful challenge. So yeah, I was sick last week, so I watched a lot of TV. I watched Severance, and it has that sort of same feel to it, how in a bland space there's like such as undertones of horror that can be created. And so I like that. I kind of like that smart, thoughtful world of horror, if you will.
Oh yeah, no, and that's totally fine. Like I think I'm into like sci-fi, like
Huh?
science, like that's kind of my go-to, but I do like it all. But so I mean, where can the fans out there see more of your work? Like where can we go?
Huh, gosh, it's funny that I just shot another stills for another, it's not quite a horror film, it's more like a horror rom-com film,
Mm.
The Zombie Wedding, which I was brought on by
Oh
Olga,
yeah.
who did wardrobe for that. It was kind of fabulous. And it was a cast of, oh God, it were 40 or 50 extras for a low budget movie. That's a lot. And it was down in South Jersey. And it's produced by Weekly World News. So I don't know, you might be a bit young for that, but Weekly World News was a parody of like the National Enquirer. And it was a literal printed checkout line newspaper that was an over-the-top parody of the National Enquirer. In fact, they had bought the National Enquirer's presses and then created this thing. So they own a huge collection of intellectual properties and started. They've done theater, but now they're making films. So she brought me down on that, and that was kind of special too. But again, that one is it's in post-production now. The other one that I shot post-production, Tannery, is still in production and post-production. So there's a lot of things that I'm eager really to get out there in the world now.
For sure.
But I wouldn't tell you where you could see most of my work. I'm shooting a gardening catalog tomorrow. I shoot a lot of wines and spirits for and cigars and things like that on a regular basis. Yeah.
Now with that as well, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but like, have you ever been to Colorado to shoot at all? Anything?
Not to shoot. No.
Oh, well, have you been to Colorado?
I haven't been in years. Probably it's 15 years when I was out there last. Yeah. Maybe.
And I bet you can create some magical stuff out here. I love this state, and I know it's a bunch of stuff.
It's and you know what? It's funny. It's if I'm traveling with family, we had this joke that I would lug my camera with me and it would sit in the closet for a week or two, because it really, it's hard on vacation just to go out and focus. My wife takes better snapshots than I take, so I let her do it. I need to be sort of like immersed in it. So if I'm going to take some pictures in the city, I got to go like to a neighborhood and hang out, find a good corner and hang out for hours and just sort of like wait, digest it, get a feel for it, think about what it is I'm trying to say, and then see what comes out. So, I haven't done that kind of work. I've traveled and I've traveled to Morocco, Malaysia, and places to take photos, and it's like wonderful and beautiful, but it is a challenge to try and see something that is so unfamiliar, that so many people view as unfamiliar and even like, I hate the word, but exotic. But to see it in your own personal point of view and to imbue it with something that's something personal, so that the photos don't look like anybody could have taken it. So I find that's a challenge for me. Sometimes I just overthink it. Yeah.
For sure. No, but I mean, there's millions of people out there, man, that love your work. So again, thank you for so much. And I don't want to take up too much of your time. Would you like to tell us, your all your social media handles where we can?
Sure. I'm at Jeff Harris Photo on Instagram, at Jeff Harris Photo. JeffHarrisPhoto.com. That's my website. That's mostly it. I don't do Twitter. So it's really Instagram, and the old school website is where a lot of my work lives.
There's definitely nothing wrong with that, man. So I'm eager to see what else you got coming out in store. I can't wait. The Tannery, I'm very excited about. Can't wait to see your work.
It's beautiful, yeah.
So just in closing, any advice you want to give to any photographers out there that maybe want to start branching into the commercial industry or the film industry with photography?
Yeah, you know, as much as I'm not great about it, but as much as people use social media, as much as people, you might any kind of marketing, it's really it's building relationships. I'm working for somebody tomorrow whom I kept in touch with for years, and we had worked together 10 years ago on something. I shoot for a magazine on Famous. I shoot for Cigar Aficionado, Wine Spectator, Whiskey Advocate. I've been working for them since 1987. And the people I tend to get work largely through relationships and word of mouth. So so I would say, to anybody who wants to start, one, just take pictures all the time. You want to be a filmmaker, take movies, cut 3 shots together, and and there you have it. But it's really about making and maintaining meaningful relationships with people. I think Instagram is best, or social media is best, when you're engaging with people instead of just posting and posting. When you find somebody whose work looks meaningful and you strike up a conversation, another photographer perhaps, or an illustrator, an artist, a art director, because that's what everybody's craving, and everybody's craving that more since the pandemic. That type of connection. So and I would say look at different art forms. Try not to look at other photographers' work too much. Because we can all fall into that trap of compare and despair, right? We all, there are photographers who've been doing what I'm starting to do now, and they've been doing it for 20 years, and I go, oh my God, look at so-and-so's work. That's amazing. Mark, that's amazing. Jason Bell, Curtis Warenko, these guys are like giants. But there is enough work out there for everyone. But don't compare and despair. Look at films, look at art, paintings, movies, illustrations, read, and try and figure out what your own personal point of view about whatever it is you're photographing. I used to teach, and I would give, everybody had to photograph a shoe, and 12 kids really would have to come up with something wildly different, about that shoe, something meaningful to them. So, and it's kind of a beautiful golden age of photography right now. And especially, in a way, fashion. I think rates may never be what they once were, and it's not a lucrative profession by any means, but it's open to so many more people now. And there's such a refreshing push by content providers and magazines and advertisers to be more inclusive, to be more thoughtful, to hire models who are non-binary or not able-bodied, to hire people of color. But it's, it is a great time right now because of that. And people want, I think that clients want to see personal work. They want to see stories. They want to see personal stories. So I would say, for someone who wants to start, stick with what's important to you, and don't try and do things that are glossy and slick. Really just try and tell your story, and tell the story of people who are meaningful to you. And I think that's where the world is right now.
Yeah. Sir, I do appreciate the advice, and I'm sure that the listeners will enjoy, our little talk and the advice that you gave as well. So, sir, I do appreciate your time so much, and I hope that again, we'll see more of your work here in the near future. So that's all the questions I had for today. I don't know if you want to, say something else out there for the viewers or what have you.
I just, I'm thrilled that people have embraced the work, Terrifier. I think that once those other films come out, they'll, hopefully they'll have a similar reaction to that too. Yeah, use it, share it, tag me in it, Yeah, that's
Yep.
it. Tag me because I'd like to see what happens to it. Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, sir, you have a great night and stay safe.
It's a real pleasure. Just so lovely to meet you, and I really appreciate
Thank
being
you.
included.
Hopefully, maybe one of these days we could actually get face to face on the project. I know I got some stuff going on, so hopefully we can get together one of these days. So I would love to meet you in person. Seriously.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, thank you.
Aaron.
It's been a great fun.
Yes,
Thanks.
sir.
All right.